My name is Thomas Camilleri. If this is the first time that you guys have joined us for a Global School Alliance virtual conference, again, welcome. It's great to have everybody here. I can see some familiar faces, which is always good to see. I know that we are logging in from all around the world. So one thing I'd like us all to begin with is just to draw your attention to the chat function on Zoom. It would be really cool for everybody to drop in some shout outs and to let us know whereabouts in the world you are calling in from. Thank you, Tony. So I will just jump into my share screen to begin with. We will go here. Okie dokie. So again, some more detail around how we're getting on. So again, today, the title of the conference is around redefining the role of a teacher. What has changed and how have you prepared for it? The theme has really come about from a lot of the online discussion and especially in public forums like social media around the new levels of ambiguity and stress around reopening schools after Corona, and especially coming back into the educational environment at the beginning of a new academic year. And now not only have frontline educators needed to keep on top of the well-being of their students and their academic progress, there's a whole host of additional responsibilities that have either been brought on through health and safety or brought on by local or national government requirements, which especially that we have found in the UK has been really very much a moving target. Again, this forum won't become one of moaning about the successes or the failures of certain organizations, but I think that the way I can speak for our government in the UK has probably handled the situation hasn't been the easiest way and the clearest way for our schools as institutions and educators as those who are there for the safety and well-being of their classes. So what we're really interested to find out is, what does the new role of a teacher actually include? Where are the boundaries between your responsibilities for delivering educational and academic based content? Pastorally, what is your role as a carer, as somebody who is trying to not just impart information, but really develop these young people into their full potential? Where does it become your role in not just the health and safety within your classroom, but the health and safety of kids when they go home, when they're playing with their friends? Like where are these lines being drawn? So we have a quick agenda here. So we will basically start with myself giving a bit of an introduction to the Global School Alliance. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, again, welcome. So we will move on to a little intro around the Facebook group, which is still the place that we are using as an open forum for dialogue between members. As I say, we are in the process of developing a better platform to be able to enable that to happen, but it's not here yet. We've got a new project and program launch with the Ambassador Pro, which I'll be going into some detail in a minute, and then we'll move on to guest speaker presentations. We're joined by 4 lovely ladies who will be sharing their experience from their educational setting from all around the world. So we will do introductions to the speakers shortly, and then we'll finish with a Q&A segment, which what I will ask for you guys who are joining us, if you do have a question that may come about from one of the presentations that you're about to hear, please, if you can write it in the chat, and if you can include the person that you are asking the question of, or if it's just open to the panel, you can just ask the question. And what we'll do is at the end of the 4 speaker presentations, I'll come round and we'll pick out some of the key themes, and I will ask the person who's asked the question to unmute and to fire away. So what we'll do is, again, if we run out of time, so we're looking to keep this conference within 2 hours, because I know some of you, it's really late already. Any other questions that we don't get around to completing, they will be on the Facebook group. And if there are questions for each of the speakers, we'll be handing them over. And what we are asking from our lovely speakers is to impart their 5 pearls of wisdom, which again, we'll be sharing in the Facebook group for you guys to really get stuck into later on in the process. So, Global School Alliance really is about uniting passionate educationalists from all around the world under a common goal of raising standards of global education. We are combining the online collaboration and immersive experiences for members to help you develop transformational international partnerships. So the GSA was born from the work that we have done with True Partnerships Group. The biggest part of that organization is a company called True Education Partnerships, which I am the founder and CEO of. Within True Partnerships, we have done a lot of work with essentially establishing international partnerships between UK schools and Chinese schools. It's the biggest program we've run is our sister school program, and we currently have 180 active partnerships up and running, where we are delivering basically delegations to and from China and the UK for staff and leaders. We are running student exchanges, again, moving people backwards and forwards, and quite importantly and quite relevant now, online projects. So the Global School Alliance is really an extension for us into other countries and other areas around the world. China has been my sort of childhood love, and you know, all the lessons that we have learned through running these for the past 5-6 years. We feel that now we're in a good place to get the Global Alliance in on the fun. So currently there are 2 main memberships that you guys can look for. So ambassadors and members. Some clarification there. The ambassadors are really for you as an individual, as an educator, and the members are for your educational background, so for your schools or your training centres and the like. Again, the goals behind the GSA is really about bringing this global learning experience goes beyond the classroom. We are really trying to create a forum for educationalists from around the world to have an opportunity to learn from one another, to really pass that learning on to the students that you guys look after. Again, I think I can speak fairly widely for most people in this group now, is that really your roles within education is really about the development of your students and their personal development into the awesome human beings it can be. And so a lot of this additional work that you guys are doing, being on a call at 10 o'clock in the evening to further your own networks and your own understanding it is for your benefit, obviously, but ultimately all of that value is going to be passed down to the young people that you guys support. And so if we can make that easier and more exciting and more accessible, then that's a big win for us. Again, the plan for the GSA is really to facilitate, well, at the minute, in an online environment to bring everybody together. But we are keeping our eyes very closely on the state of travel over the next 6 months to 12 months, because we are actually firm believers that, you know, connecting online is fantastic and it's definitely the first step, but to really get to learn from another human being, we need to be in the same room together, we need to be drinking tea together, we need to be eating, we need to be living each other's lives, and that is a really, really important part of this relationship and partnership building process that we are pioneering here. So again, ideally what I would suggest is, for more information, you guys want to be jumping onto the website, which you can find at globalschoolalliance.com. Again, what you'll see is that there are 3 elements that you can sign up to at the minute. There will be a 4th, which I'm about to jump into in a second. But if you just, again, click on, it will take you through to a registration form. Super simple, super quick and easy. So if you want to join, jump on and go for that. What we do ask for is, I am very aware that you guys are super busy, and you know, September is a manic time normally, let alone in the situation we're in. But what we really hope to achieve within the GSA is it becomes an active environment. So I encourage everybody to jump in, but I would ask that if you do come in, please contribute, please get stuck in, please reach out and have conversations, because that's what it's all about. So the Ambassador Pro. Now, this basically, we have understood that for us to have and be able to provide the biggest impact possible, we need to work as a big team. And our internal resources are always going to be finite. So the idea behind the Ambassador Pro is we want to build and expand our team to include some of you guys. There will be some program launches that are going to be made available to the GSA community. As I said, we've done a lot, you know, we've been working with 400 plus schools, with getting them engaging between the UK and China, online and off. And with opening that up to you guys within the GSA, we are firmly aware and confident that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to get involved, and to enable us to be able to do that properly, we want to, again, get you guys in on the action, to help with expanding that reach. So there are a couple of programs that we're going to be coming out with soon. One will be a China-based online camp. Another one would be a UK-based online camp, and the ability to learn Mandarin or English online will also be made available. Again, there will be a pre-launch invitation that will be going out to everybody who shows an interest. And essentially what it will enable us to do is to be able to provide discounts to anybody who's part of the GSA. So there will be some more information coming your way, so just keep an eye out for that. The Facebook group, again, exclusive content, really is all about connecting with the other educators. It's a Q&A opportunity. What I'd really like to see in the future is, because I've experienced this sort of thing within the kind of business and entrepreneurial world, is that within the right sort of community, you feel confident to, you know, we all have challenges in our own personal setups, and often these challenges are very similar to other people's. But if you don't have a conversation, you always think that it's all of these problems are just unique to you and nobody else might understand it. But having somewhere to go and say, look, put your hand up and say, I'm struggling with this. Is there anybody out there in the wider community who has a good solution for this, or has a good remedy that they might be able to help out with? That Q&A support structure is invaluable, and this is what we're really trying to build out on the Facebook group. And as I mentioned before, the 5 pearls of wisdom have really been super cool. So if you simply go again to Facebook, Global School Alliance, it is a group. You do need to be a member of the GSA to jump in. So please make sure you sign up along with jumping in the Facebook group. But again, there is lots of things being shared with, again, updates for opportunities, some pearls of wisdom. The latest one from Angelica. Again, it's just a good place to keep in touch with everybody. So before we jump into our first speaker with Catherine, just another quick reminder around the Global Educator Award. Basically what we're looking for is for either yourself or one of your colleagues who has made, exceptional efforts towards bringing this idea of global education to your classrooms. You can find the application on the website. So again, it's literally top nav bar, Global Educator of the Year, click on it. A real super quick and easy place to nominate an educator. We've had, I think, over 60 odd applications thus far, and some of the prizes that are available. We will be sending out some information next couple of weeks, more about what each of these are, referring to the masterclasses and the masterminds. These are all programs that we've been beavering away on for the past couple of months now. And just to give you a sneak preview, the masterclass will essentially be inviting some renowned educators in to be able to share some of their experiences and provide us with some training opportunities. So again, the winners of the award will get a whole host of really exciting awards and rewards there. So go and on here and nominate either yourself or your colleague. Again, some of these applications are super cool, and it's really rewarding for us actually to be able to go through and see some of the great work you guys are doing. And what we'll do ultimately is look to share some parts of the application, just to see some of the lengths that you guys go to bring in other cultures and other learning opportunities in the classroom is super special. So I would love to invite Catherine now to kind of kick off with our speaker presentations. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to you, Catherine.
Hello, everybody, and good evening. Let me just get this set up here. I hope everyone is well. Thanks for the introduction. Okay, are we good to go?
We are indeed.
Okay, super. Okay, guys, let me just pull this out from here. My name is Catherine, and I am a group head of inclusion, managing groups of schools here in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, in the Middle East. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the changes that have happened in our industry over the last few months. And I'm going to begin with a quote that I think encapsulates kind of the huge change that we've all experienced. So it goes like this. The notice went out on the 6th of March, a Friday afternoon. All classes at the University of Washington, Seattle, the city which was at the epicenter of the outbreak of COVID, would shift online the following Monday. Instructors scrambled to set up remote learning options for more than 40,000 students. It became apparent very quickly that this was something that wasn't going to go away soon. And I think this quote shows us the absolute gravity of what we've experienced, going from a Friday afternoon to a Monday, asking a faculty staff to accommodate a change of 40,000 students. Like, it's absolutely inconceivable in general, kind of our general concepts, I think. So the pandemic has disrupted learning for 9 out of 10 students around the world. That's absolutely phenomenal, according to UNESCO. And it's resulted in schools shut down across the world, with over 1.2 billion children out of the classroom. And as a result, education has changed dramatically. And there hasn't been such a change in an industry with such immediacy and such gravity since probably World War One, where there was a shift from the industrial to the focus on manufacturing of weapons. It was a complete shift. All of the factories across Europe had to change their productivity. And it's something along those lines that we were looking at with the shift in education. So how has that affected teachers? Well, there are four key areas where the bigger impacts have been evidenced over the past few months. And research is still very new and very limited on the area. We're still only getting used to it. But one of the biggest factors where it has impacted heavily is well-being and health and safety. I'm going to talk a bit about that in a moment. Then there's globalization and academic performance. So people respond very differently to such a big change, and those responses change over time. And very few, fortunately, of people have had experience of such drastic change in their life, like maybe earthquakes or war or an attack or something like that. So it's been a completely new concept for the vast majority of people and teachers. Some had the opportunity to say goodbye to people, and this is particularly pertinent in international settings where you've got a high incidence of expats. Many of our expat kids left the UAE. We had a mass exodus in the first couple of months. Our student numbers have dropped across 11 of our schools for probably about 20%. And they're still not back yet. And there's been a population decrease of, people are estimating, around 700,000 in the UAE, which is hugely impactful. So there are lots and lots of people who have been relatively abandoned. Then there's the whole shift in our work experience, working from home. Some people feel overwhelmed, claustrophobic, they miss that social interaction. And teachers have undergone huge strain. And it's been really impactful on their health and well-being. And there's no one way to respond to a crisis, and nobody was prepared. So as a group leader, my team and I, we were absolutely struggling in the dark. And Tom, you were mentioning that the government in the UK weren't very clear on their direction. I don't think anybody was clear on their direction internationally because nobody knew. We were all standing on the precipice of this complete new event that was revolutionizing our industry, and everyone was just grappling in the dark. But after this storm, we do aim to be wiser, stronger, and more connected with a vastly improved educational system. I mean, it can only be better given the innovation that we've had. So one of the things that we looked at carefully here in the UAE, and which was a huge focus from the government side, was teacher well-being and how to support teachers, families, students during this shift. And we devised, colleagues of mine and I devised kind of a support network and a program where we looked very carefully at the role of resilience and how developing a resilient mindset could help us to face the challenges. And once we have developed that mindset, then we can look at taking that challenge and making it work in a positive way by looking at globalization, looking at academic performance, tech revolution, the revolution of tech, and how we can help to improve our practice from there. So to understand our emotional response to a situation, you've got to be very aware of the feelings that are associated with it. We did a lot of work with the teachers in the UAE. I was working with the regulators to kind of help make them aware of what they were feeling, make them aware that there was nothing wrong with it, and that everybody else was pretty much universally feeling the same thing. So there is a lot of fear. I think everybody everywhere was fearful of, number one, the virus itself, fearful of their jobs. So many jobs have been disrupted, fearful of the impact on society as a whole, the impact on globalization, impact on trade, travel, everything. There is a lot of anger, particularly we saw from children, where they simply couldn't understand, why can't I see my friends? Why have my part of my family emigrated? They didn't know, they couldn't grasp it. And that it was often the same for adults. So anger is a very important emotion to recognize and to accommodate and kind of try to manage it. There is a lot of confusion and frustration, as we said, between the governments, between, say, school leaders, trying to forge a path through this absolute darkness, not knowing when it will end. And that hasn't changed. We still don't know when it will end. At the moment here in the UAE, some of the Northern Emirates, which are like counties, some of the Northern Emirates are still delivering only online learning, while here in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, we're mostly face-to-face or a blended model. So there's a lot of frustration and confusion about what's going to happen next. Some people were feeling guilt and self-blame, a lot of it around the first couple of months. I'm sure everybody on this conference, those first couple of weeks when you're on Zoom and you're like, oh, somebody's muted me, or there are kids writing all over your screen, or somebody asks you to create a breakout group in Teams and you're kind of going, I don't know what a breakout group is. So there's a lot of guilt about the not knowing and not being prepared. And that in itself led to some shame, humiliation. And then there was also on top of that sorrow and grief, because we were grieving. We're grieving our usual work position. We're grieving our interaction with our colleagues. And sometimes, unfortunately, people were grieving lost ones, whether it was lost to I'm trying to think of the word, the COVID, or to loss from immigration, out migration. So what we suggested was that our teachers, leaders, families and students build a resilience and a health and safety plan. And what that kind of encompassed was that we advised people to take time before they tackled everything else that went with the full shift in the industry, but take time and think of a time where you were really challenged, and think of a time that you dealt with it really well and how you dealt with it at that time. Take those skills and apply them to the current situation. And it sounds kind of simple, but to actually do it in detail can really create a resilience plan that you can use in a meaningful way daily. So we looked at meaning, like if they had an event that they had dealt with before, but come through it and come out stronger at the other side. So look at the meaning of it. What was the purpose that kept you going through that negative event? Looking at the support that you had around you. Who was supportive? Who was there? What structures? What systems? What tools did you access? In line with that, hand in hand, were the strategies that you could use to kind of create your own resilience, almost like a shield. Then really think about your mindset. And mindset is probably one of the biggest things that you can utilize to tackle any situation. Some of you might be familiar with a lady called Carol Dweck. She does a lot of work around the power of positive thinking. She's got an excellent TED talk that's on the power of yet, which is whenever you're faced with adversity, if you think you can't go on, instead of saying, I can't do that, replace it with, I can't do that yet. And she found that the use of that simple addition to a sentence or a thought can really open up opportunity where otherwise you might feel closed and uninclined to move forward. Looking at physical health and mental toughness. So by addressing all of these 6 areas, we advised our teachers and families in the community to really create a plan of action where they could draw these strengths and tools that had been successful from the before and apply them in the situation in the shift from COVID. So once that was all kind of in place and teachers felt a little bit more personally and mentally able to move forward, we then started looking at, well, how can we make this work and what kind of impact can we have on the industry, but in a positive way? So one of those areas is globalization. And the Harvard Business Review recently reported a 13 to 32% decline in merchandise trade, 30 to 40% reduction in FDI, and a 40 to 80% drop in international airline passengers. So that would indicate a major setback in globalization, but that is not reflected in the educational industry. So the educational industry was a complete outlier compared to the majority of other industries internationally. And what was seen to be happening was that this ongoing technological shift was supercharged by COVID. Like, if you can imagine our educational industry, say 8 months ago, if somebody had approached, say, industry as a whole and said, you need to be looking at online learning and shift within the next year, everybody would have said it is impossible. Governments, leaders, individual teachers, it's not going to happen in a year or 6 months or however long. It's going to take about 10 years. But we did it. Like that quote from Washington at the start showed, we did it in literally a weekend in some cases overnight. So school leaders really can think productively about COVID-19, technology and globalization by taking a structured approach and considering both internal and external implications. So internally, we can look at how individual functions can harness the opportunities of new technologies while managing the change. And organizational change is probably one of the biggest challenges after well-being that school principals and leaders will talk about as being a barrier to any kind of development. So if you really consider that around the technological shift that was really imposed on us, you can harness that and apply it in lots of different areas because the momentum is there. Externally, we can think about the trends that could potentially change a school's standing vis-a-vis students, parents, community, and so on. And for most schools, the trends could be a little bit forward and back. A lot of schools were seeing a couple of steps forward, a couple of steps back, but generally the trend was in a positive way, where schools were developing and growing. And all we need to do is kind of reflect on the connectivity that we've all experienced over the past number of months. Like, for example, I'm here in the UAE. I'm delivering for a conference out of London. There are people here from Moldova, Hungary, Germany, all over. It's a truly global webinar. And the likelihood of me having that kind of connectivity before COVID is very slim. I had been presenting only generally to Middle East and Asia. So this is a really positive trend. And we're getting information from all of these countries. Each country has its own worldview. Each country has its own practice. And we're bringing all of those together and placing them on a platform where everyone can say, I really like that, I'm going to take that. I don't like that so much, I can leave that, but I like this and I can take it. And we're open up to all this practice. So how does that affect academic performance? So students, research is showing that there's a huge uptick in online learning. Of course, we've had no choice. And if you look at this graph, you can see that we've gone to almost 1.5 billion learners who are now accessing online resources. And that's an absolutely, to get your head around those kind of numbers, it's an insane concept to think that we've done that in under 6 months. And whether it's a language app, virtual tutoring, video conferencing, or online learning software, there's been significant surge in usage since COVID. So an example of this is the Tencent Classroom, which was used extensively since mid-Feb. And before that, its usage was very minimal in China. And the Chinese government literally said, 250 million full-time students had to move online. 250 million. And they moved very smoothly in a very short period of time. Another example is Alibaba's distance learning solution, which is called Ding Talk. They had to prepare for a similar influx. And the CEO said to support the large-scale remote work, the platform tapped Alibaba Cloud to deploy more than 100,000 new cloud servers in just 2 hours. 100,000 new servers. So these kind of advances were probably not even within our ability to conceive before COVID happened. So what does the research tell us? There's a really good website called WeForum that brings, it kind of picks out interesting research from different areas, and it brings it together. And it's not just education, it's business, it's all sorts of industries. It's really interesting. So some believe that the unplanned and rapid move to online learning would result in a poor user experience, while others believe that the hybrid model would emerge. So nobody was really clear at the time, but historically there's been loads of research done on blended models, and almost universally they show that the blended model is better. It's just that the barriers were there before COVID, where people didn't think they could access technology, they possibly didn't know the tools were available. So now there have been successful transitions among many universities, and teachers' roles have transitioned with speed. For example, at Zhejiang, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, University, they managed to get more than 5,000 courses online in just 2 weeks. So that's editing, rewriting, ensuring you've got your curricular standards in place for 5,000 courses in 2 weeks. And the Imperial College of London immediately started offering a course on the science of coronavirus. So this hasn't just changed how we deliver and the tools that we use, it's shaping what we deliver as well. So people are seeing that there's a need for training on certain areas, not just the delivery platforms like Teams and Zoom. And I think we all need training in those. I particularly am really not great at Teams. So whenever somebody asks me to present on Teams, I'm always a little nervous. But it's the courses that are being delivered as well. So the universities, major universities internationally, we're starting to see an uptick in science courses, biology, all of those, I think it's phlebotomy, the study of bloods, and all of those courses are becoming more prominent and more popular. So in terms of which way is better, I don't think there's an easy way to say categorically face-to-face, blended, or solely online is best, because we don't have enough data. But research shows us that on average, students retain 25 to 60% more material when they're learning online. Now, this research, I should say, is usually for middle to high school and above. The younger students generally build a better knowledge when they're doing active play, active role, and they're engaged. So this is kind of an older student, maybe 9 or 10 years old and up. They retain up to 60% more material compared to only 8 to 10% in the classroom. And that could be for multiple reasons. Like as teachers, we're busy organizing things. We're busy getting kids to pay attention. Like kids are distracted by their peers and there's so many distractions. Whereas online, it's much more focused. And it's mostly due to the students to be able to learn faster during e-learning because they're going at their own pace. There's less time for distraction. So it begs the question, why would we go back? Why would we want to go back to solely face-to-face? Dr. Amjad, a professor at the University of Jordan, he's been using one of the platforms and he has quoted as saying, it's changed the way of teaching. It enables me to reach out to many more students effectively and efficiently. And I think that's been the case for a lot of teachers, that their ability to connect individually and really get down deep into students' needs and their learning needs. Now, it's not all entirely positive. I'm an inclusion practitioner and I'm seeing really heavy negative effects on my students with special needs or individual needs, particularly where we have social and emotional needs. And that's an area that we need to address individually. But for the mainstream student, the positive effects of this are huge. So the positive effects, therefore, you would have kind of as a correlation for teachers will be huge. If we're seeing so much improvement in academic performance, we will naturally improve our practice in order to meet those kids' needs as they advance. So again, I say, why would we go back? we're on the brink of a really exciting time. So in conclusion, while the shift has not been easy, it has been a steep and, in my opinion, a really successful learning curve. Education has leaped forward in terms of technology, connectivity, and global engagement. And the teacher's role has been completely redefined, with a profession emerging that is more tech savvy, more conscious, more mindful of well-being and health and safety. A profession that is definitely more globally aware and connected, and one that's shifting focus from what really was an archaic industrial era system to a newly emerging, modern, youth and future focused educational industry. We've been catapulted into a new era of learning, and I think it's been really exciting. And that's it. Any questions, guys?
Catherine, thank you so much. That was amazing. Again, questions, guys, if you can chuck them into the chat box, that'd be fantastic. And we will pull them all together for the Q&A segment at the end. Catherine, quick question before you move on to cassettes. In the UAE, how have parents taken to remote learning? Has that been taken up with ease in the household, or has that been quite a difficult challenge for the teacher to, again, not being the expert at Zoom or Teams, to then have to explain to the students and the families and having to deal with all that malarkey?
Yeah. So the UAE is possibly, well, the GCC in general is possibly a little bit unique. It's very different setting. It's very different landscape compared to Europe or the US. The majority of families have access to tech and Wi-Fi here, and that's including families from the really lower end labor force families all the way through to the elite. Like tech is widely available here. So the shift was quite smooth in that regard. Like my sister is a teacher in Ireland, and they just pretty much shut up shop in March because there's no Wi-Fi. She's in a rural area, and most people didn't have a consistent access to the internet. So they pretty much shut up shop. Whereas here, things transitioned very quickly and rather smoothly to online learning because of the availability of the infrastructure was there. The biggest challenge was where parents were finding themselves as teacher and parent and being locked down. The UAE went into a full lockdown enforced by the police and the army, where there were periods of weeks at a time where we could not leave our house. Once every 3 days to go to a shop, and you had to apply for a permit, and that was very strictly enforced. So we saw a lot of families really struggling, where you suddenly had parents both at home trying to work. They were also trying to educate their kids. You could have 4 kids in the home at one time with no relief. And there were a lot of social and emotional challenges going on, a lot. And the incidences of domestic abuse skyrocket.
And you know, what is encouraging and not depressing, but not filling me with so much joy is actually, I've asked that question a number of times on these conferences now, and the answer seems to be very similar across the board, regardless of country, culture, language. I think the idea of being locked up with your kids for that amount of time terrifies us all. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that the technology side of things was smooth, and that actually, I think everybody from parent to child to educator has all been on this quick, rapid learning curve of how do we make this work? How do we make this work in a way where, Kaliana was saying just before we jumped on, that actually sometimes the child would be educating the teacher on how to use Zoom better to teach the class, and this weird dynamic where, you know, a parent would now need to be inside in the conversation of education. And
and teachers so many of our teachers were so nervous, because now you're not only facing a class of 20 to 30 kids, you're facing a class of 20 to 30 kids and their mum or their dad and their nanny. Because most families, well, a lot of families here have nannies. So you could have 3 adults for every kid.
Terrifying.
you're delivering
That's
to,
fine.
yeah, it's nerve-wracking.
Awesome. Catherine, thank you so much. We
You're
are
very
now
welcome.
going to move over to Cassette. So if you could share your screen with us and give us a quick intro, and I'll hand it over to you.
Yes, hello. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes, you are loud and
Yes.
clear, and we've got the PowerPoint. Awesome.
Okay, thank you. So, hi everyone. Good evening. It's already nighttime here in the Philippines. I'm Kisek Mangabat. I'm a school counselor since 2013 from different schools here in Laguna and Metro Manila. And currently, I'm a guidance associate at Sheriff St. Peter's School. I'm a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Psychology as well, and I have credits in medicine. Also, currently, I have founded an organization called Young Minds Philippines. And also, on the side, aside from being an educator, I do performance coaching and also I do stress management consultancy. So basically, I'm a mental health advocate. Okay, so before we go to the topic at hand, I want all of you, okay, to go to our country, which is the Philippines. So we are an archipelago. So we are a group of islands. So our islands is around 7,107 islands in Southeast Asia. And our language is Filipino. Basically, it's Tagalog. And we also have different provincial dialects as well. And also, we have learned too much new languages, and we were also colonized by the Americans, so we have learned English as well. So most of us, most of the Filipino students are also speaking in English fluently. Our present education system is from kindergarten to grade 12. And if you ever want to go to college, so we also have the universities and colleges as well. And now we have two different school settings. So one is the private schools. So if you want to enroll in a school that has 1 to 20 ratio of teacher to student, so you enroll on a private school. But if you want a free education for all, so you enroll on a public school. Now I want to give you a Tagalog term for teacher. So it's called guro. Okay. So this is just like guru, you know, and to teach in our language is pagtuturo. And also technically it means to point. So to us, to teach is basically to point out something. Okay. So the role of the teacher in the Philippines has two different settings. So before, okay, we have an old Filipino setting where our teachers are very, very conservative and strict. We have the traditional approach of a physical classroom setting. We were very values oriented, and also we taught English and Filipino languages very strictly. We also have coined a term called terror teacher. So some of our teachers before are called terror teachers because they are very, very strict. So they are more focused on the discipline of the students. And lessons were very verbatim and very technical as well. So it's mostly theoretical, and our students before are very bookish. Also, before we were technologically challenged because since we are a developing country, our internet connection is not really that good. So we have slow internet connections, and some of our schools in provinces, they still do not have internet. So yes, we are technologically challenged. And also, before, 90% of our students are professionals. So they have graduated, and then they also graduated in college, and they really were professionals in their own field. Right now, the new Filipino settings is that teachers are more lenient. So there was no terror teacher involved right now. And we now have the modern approach of an outcomes-based and very modern approach towards teaching. We still, teach Filipino and English languages, but it's not too strict. So we don't really force our students to speak English. We actually just encourage them to speak English more. We now have techie teachers, so it's not terror. We changed the word terror into techie, but still we are on this learning curve. So our teachers are still learning about this online setup. So we're still trying to navigate towards MS Teams, Google Meet, and also this Zoom. Okay, so we are still trying to be techie. But then our students still, are professionals in their own field. But then we have this concern right now. So our concern is that some of our students are not that fluent in English because they have this low confidence already in speaking English. They have coined the term nose bleeding. So if they speak English, they said that their noses will bleed. Okay, so that's really the concern of our students here. Since we are a developing country, we also have contact centers, and we have this huge number of students applying for customer service representatives. And that is the concern, wherein they have low confidence in speaking English, but then they have to go into customer service. So that is the concern now of the teachers. Also, our students have become Google-based. Their research projects, or they do research by just Googling it out. So that is also the concern. And we have tried, or we have this scene wherein our students are more into social media, and they have this influencer mindset. So they want to be influencers in their own field. And that is also the concern because some of them still has low confidence in speaking in English. So our school have come up with this challenge now, and we did this program wherein our main language of instruction is actually English. We don't speak Tagalog. We just start to speak English from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, but we still have our Filipino subjects. And we center on 4 core values. So we focus on teaching responsibility, honesty, cooperation, and respect. Because through that, we believe that we are inculcating a holistic approach towards teaching this to our students, because we cannot just really focus on books or being theoretically minded. So we did this holistic approach. So we only not hone out physical health, but also mental and spiritual health as well. And right now, since of course we had this stressor, that is the pandemic, and also the COVID-19, pandemic, we have this learning from home setup. So it's a mixture of blended learning and synchronous and asynchronous learning. We use the MS Teams and Quipper as learning management systems. But still, since the Philippines has slow internet connections, so we come up with a solution that would have synchronous and asynchronous learning. So some students will be able to submit their tasks at hand a day after their classes. So that is how we help them to learn even from their homes. And now, since we cannot really go out, so all students are safe in their homes, even our teachers as well. And some teachers who don't have internet connection, they will just go to our school, but they need to wear face masks, and also they need to wear protective clothing as well, because of course our government is implementing or have these protocols that we need still to wear protective clothing in order for us to be prevented from being infected with COVID-19. And after this, I was actually thinking, as an educator, what can I do still to help our students? So I come up with an organization. It's called Young Minds Philippines. This is actually inspired by Young Minds UK. So Young Minds UK is, I think, in London. So I actually emailed them and asked some resources that I can use in order for me to start this group. So I have only 3 admins. So 2 of them are not educators, but they are engineers in their own field. And I'm the only educator as an admin. So we focus on mental health awareness, tech talks. So since, of course, we are technological challenged, we do these tech talks on Facebook Live every month. We also have relationship talks. So our students still already are focused on their relationships. So we have this relationship talks. And also, of course, we promote English as second language. So our group is on Facebook. This is non-profit. So we are not funded by anyone yet, even Young Minds UK. So they cannot really fund us, and it's okay. And actually, I wouldn't really want them to fund us. So we do these webinars and mental health teleconsults. So motivational videos and also postings are posted on Facebook. And now, the role of the teacher in the Philippines has changed. It has an abrupt change, actually. So me, I became actually a mental health advocate, a translator and teacher of English. So I translate Filipino language to English. And I became, over time, a tech support professional and a relationship guru. So some students would email me asking, how can I help them with their relationships? And I became also a career development specialist. Actually, this is my forte, to help our students or our young ones to choose whatever career they want. And I also, on the side, actually our teachers, some of our teachers here in the Philippines, they do on the side performance coaching or also teaching English as second language. And also to impart to you and to end this talk, I will be giving this quote, which is, teaching students to count is fine, but then teaching them what counts is really best, because we cannot just teach them the basics, or we cannot just teach them what's on the book. So we actually need to teach them what is important and what would help them in order to survive in this pandemic. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Lisa, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I found it really interesting to see how you broke down the role of a teacher in the Philippines, and your reference to the Philippines being a developing country. One thing I have seen highlighted more recently is any of the change, especially in the UK, any changes that have been made. When the government has been allocating, okay, well, which organizations should be the ones to make these changes and to enforce them and to make them happen? Whereas previously I would have assumed there'd be the police or our National Health Service or a different organization. Some of these responsibilities have actually been put on teachers, which I found really interesting to see how external bodies just assume that, not only do you have to teach and educate what's on the curriculum, but now we're going to also make sure that in an ambiguous way, you've got to find a solution to the problems that we don't know the answer to. So Philippines being a developing country, you've just listed the role, and some of those roles probably, those expectations won't be the expectations for teachers all around the world. And so you guys are probably in a more of a position where you encroach and you support a little bit further than just what's in the classroom. The question is, have you seen there be a drastic change to that role now compared to, let's say, 3 months ago? Has those expectations increased, or have you found there being new and different types of expectations that you as a teacher have to comply with?
Yes, actually, 3 months ago, maybe that was March, I think. So when we were starting with online learning, and our Department of Education is thinking of what is best to do with our students. So they were actually having this debate with the government, because we cannot really have all of the learning online, because since we have slow internet connection. So the Department of Education, still we have the mission to continue with education. So the drastic change is all of the teachers would need to focus on technology already, to be techie, to know how to navigate towards online learning, and as well as, of course, modular learning as well. And some of our schools in the provinces would really have difficulty in having this online learning. So yes, that is really the biggest drastic change that we have here in our country.
Awesome. Thank you again so much, Kisette. So
Thank you
if
so
you
much.
would like to stop sharing screen,
Sorry.
and then I'd love to invite Kalyane to jump in and take the screen share.
Namaste and good evening to all Global School Alliance members here. It has been a delight listening to my fellow panelists. It's important at this time that we come together and just cross over. I am Kalyani Chaudhary. I'm the principal of Billabong High International School, Thane, which is in Maharashtra, India. All my life, I have been a teacher of English. I have lived and worked in India, in its expanse, I should say, and also abroad. And Kisette, I have also lived in the Philippines for 2 years, though it was 18 years ago. And my son's teacher was a very loving teacher. So I don't know why you had the term terror teacher. And I am a lifelong learner. So I don't give importance to what my degrees are. I give importance to what I am learning every day. Because if I'm not learning every day, I am not fit to be in this profession. Because I am dealing with children in the age group of 2 to 18. So before we begin, I believe that focus, it's important to become mindful of what we are doing. So if you are in with me, we'll try out that simple exercise. Just close your eyes. You know, if we've all had a long day, this will take only 30 seconds. Think about what is weighing on your mind at the moment and take a deep breath. And whatever you are thinking about right now, because the mind cannot always be controlled, it wanders. Make a conscious effort to just leave it outside the room that you are in. And just say to yourself, I am in and I am going to be an engaged participant. Thank you. So change is the big word now. And we've never seen this kind of a change, at least in my lifetime. But the secret of any change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. So as I come from the teachers community, I believe that the teacher is the one who brings about change in the nation. She contributes or he contributes towards building of a nation.
And the three aims of education to me are the cognitive development, character building, and creating holistic individuals. So when on the 16th of March, we started with online thinking, I should say, thinking about online teaching. 13th of March, we sent out the circular to the parents that we don't want children to come to school now. At that point, we did not know till when. But the immediate thing was that learning should not stop. So what has changed? I believe the perspective has changed. I would rather use the term reinventing oneself or reinventing the system. If we talk about change, is a very cliched word, and not very often we are comfortable when we are exposed to change. So what I've put here on the slide is in a very random order. So when we set foot into the realm of online teaching, little did we know about how enormously facilitating it would be for all of us. We had no idea, literally. Yes, we were using technology, but we were unaware of what technology could actually mean during this time. So we started working from home after a week, and I'm sure the world over, if we don't thank the teachers' families, this wouldn't have been possible without their support. Because as you just said, that the teacher is not only teaching the student, she's teaching members of the family, members of the student's family. We have to be mindful that the teacher herself is part of her own family, and a lot of sacrifice and trouble is what the family must be going through, even now when I speak, for it having adjusted to this kind of a new environment. So all of this changed. Now, how do you look at it? Whether you look at it as 6 or 9 is completely up to you. I look at it as reinventing the whole community of teachers and learners. So as a teacher, we've been talking about the 21st century skills and equipping our learners with 21st century skills. But as teachers, as educators, were we really equipped to take up the 21st century skills? And this time, the pandemic time, just thrust us into that system where we had to start thinking about everything, yet far, far away from the student. So when we are in the classroom, we have to ensure that the child's academic performance does not slow down. Also, the child's well-being is taken care of. And if the child has to feel good, the teacher has to feel good first. So the reinvention has definitely not been easy, but has given a different thought process to educators. And in India, looking at the length and the breadth of the country, I know that not every school is still able to impart the online teaching as many schools can. So there is a gap, but every teacher has tried. Now, what is most needed when you are embracing change? When you're trying to get onto a platform which was partially known to you or completely unknown to you, because this change has impacted the human species out of the 8.7 million species that we have on the universe. So what is happening right now? I feel that this is some kind of a karmic baggage that the universe is trying to extract from us. And what we are in together, I think we have created this for ourselves in some way or the other. So everybody is breathing free now. Look at the birds, look at the trees, look at the water bodies, except humans. So I feel this is some kind of a purging that is happening. And during this time, we are with each other, strengthening each other in this woebegone situation. And in a few years' time, like every change, leaves a legacy, creates a legacy. So I feel in a few years' time, the community as a whole, the teachers' community, the learners' community as a whole, will be an exalted one. So when we jumped into online teaching, many of us were self-effacing. We did not want to come on to the camera. And I know there are many still who don't want to. But then there was no time where you could think and plan and do things your way, because there was a demand from the world that you continue with teaching. So to facilitate these modern learners, the requirement is a set of modern teachers. And that's what teachers have shown. Whenever I think, I put the child in the center of all my thoughts. And that's how I can think like how a child does. So whatever we expect of a child to do, are we able to cater to those needs? And this was probably that hot, every teacher is now in that hot potato situation. Whatever she had never imagined or he had never imagined in life of doing is being done right now. So I feel that as a teacher, I must have a growth mindset so that I can always work on my areas of improvement. In the process of learning, in the process of this paradigm shift, ample mistakes have been made. And it was good that we made those mistakes, because we as a community of teachers have learned how to navigate the obstacles. So the beauty here is that the teams that teachers are in now, the help that they are giving to each other in terms of tech support, in terms of emotional support, because what teachers miss now is definitely the bubbly chat in the staff rooms. Whatever said and done, that cannot happen on a WhatsApp chat or even a Zoom call. So we have to understand that the teacher is unable to take her emotional or share her emotional baggage or her fully. On top of that, we don't know the family situations, the space constraints, the demands of the children, and we want the teachers to perform. So if the teachers did not have the growth mindset, I'm sure they wouldn't have come this far. And as Catherine rightly said, why should we go back? We should not, because we've come this far. It has been an immense leap for every educator during the pandemic time. So the power of yet Unless you try, you don't know where you can be. So that is the power probably all educators have imbibed right now. So this time, we all know this will pass. In a few months, a couple of months, we don't know whether it's going to be months or a year, but it will pass. Now, through this time has to be used to look forward and decide how we manage the future. So we know that children now have very little attention span. What they want is quality. Knowledge is available at the click of a button. So this child actually does not need a teacher or a sage on the stage. The requirement is that he or she gets more out of a teacher than what is there in the textbook. Again, that is a huge challenge because the teacher probably is moving away from the traditional mindset. So she has to create new ways of addressing the same problems. She has to give new, probably the nomenclature changes, but it is like old wine in a new bottle. The packaging has to be such that the learner who's also gone through the paradigm shift will definitely not want to move back into what he was doing or the way things were being done earlier. This situation has also developed everybody's adaptability quotient. And we have seen with flipped learning, with blended learning, that teachers are giving the learners much more importance with their knowledge to come out and share in the classroom or among the peers. The teacher is also now a better listener. The touch, the feel is missing in the classroom, but the emotional connect is happening through listening. So there's more compassion and there's more love because the teacher probably doesn't need to scream at the students at all when they are learning online. At least I haven't observed that. So I feel the situation is challenging, no doubt about it, but a lot of learning in terms of my own self-awareness, the teacher's own self-awareness has increased. So what should the 21st century teachers try and do to continue with this? Children want things to be simplified, so make it relevant. The concepts are not going to change, but the way you deal with the concept is definitely going to be different. Because now the online tools that we have been exposed to are much attractive to the children. So it takes care of their well-being also. If you want the child to just write, which is required, but can be in a controlled manner. They want to simplify things, so why can't we simplify it for them? Integration of learning, subject integration. So every teacher gets to understand what the other subjects, how the other subjects can contribute in the learning. Are you creating thinkers? Because at this point in time, we have seen that it is important to think ahead. Probably, I don't want this kind of a situation to be repeated for generations in the future. But if something that is, even more catastrophic strikes, are we ready to face that? Now, we were not ready for this kind of a catastrophe 6 months ago, but we are into it and we have learned. So are we now thinking ahead, or are we still going to do what we were doing, the way we were doing? Transfer of learning is immensely important. What I know, my peer may not know. So as a teacher, am I enabling my colleague? The what does not change. So the hows and the whys have to be given more importance. And we have seen the power of collaboration. In my own school, I've seen the teachers work late in the night to discuss and assimilate what they have to do in the following week. No one told them. It was just out of passion, the love for their learners, that they decided that they have set up their own time for meetings, and they are meeting department wise, and they are because they know that communication is the key to transacting the curriculum in the class. And technology definitely has come in our lives in a big way, and it's going to stay. So in our school, we have a tech-savvy team. The tech-savvy team helps small groups of teachers to understand new technology, or if they get stuck, they follow through with them until they ensure that everybody knows everything about that particular app. And I have seen that teachers have been extremely creative during this time. A teacher who probably had never made a presentation in her life is creating beautiful presentations now. Because the aim is not lost. The pandemic may have thrown life out of gear, but the teachers have not lost their focus, not lost their aim. And that is why I will urge the teachers to continue with this creative approach to teaching. Now, the teacher's role is just next to the parents. So these are the two people who actually build the nation, the parents and the teachers. The teacher is a future leader. So she has to dwell on all these aspects, think about relationship, her responsibility, being responsive to a situation, the reliability of the resources that she's using, the risk also, the risk that she's taking or he's taking. Isn't there risk involved in a teacher's life? I feel there is. The authenticity of the resource is a big risk. Because everything is online now. We don't have access to the school library. So we are depending on resources which are online. And the resilience of the teachers. So what has been found very useful in this crisis is creating order and consistency, enabling the stakeholders to lead a structured life. I believe in evidence-based learning, so I keep my teachers and I keep looking for different articles and ways of how the things are being done in different parts of the world. So this was posted, I think, just yesterday or day before, and I felt that, this kind of learning is also helpful for a teacher who is still trying to navigate and trying to find the best way of giving it to the children. So during this time, when we talk about socio-emotional learning, we as a community of teachers have tried out very different things, which we would have never done if we were in physical space, in the brick and mortar setting. So we have the morning assembly, which is done through podcasts. Teachers record it and send it across, and it is played in every class in the morning before we begin. So that's the morning assembly time. Also, we have had inter-house competitions, because we felt that children, beyond academics, there's a lot of requirement for children to expose themselves to what they are good at. That should not stop. So the teachers, along with the students, and this has been a collaborative effort. So I can see a collaborator there in the teacher. During this time, the teacher has become a collaborator. She's collaborating with the students to bring out the best in them. So nothing has deterred the spirit of the teacher. And how I look at the teachers of the future can be tomorrow, future can be a year later. But this is what the teachers are doing right now. They're teaching beyond the grade level and the subject with flipped learning. They are teaching beyond the walls, beyond the tools, beyond the due date sometimes. So I have seen teachers giving individual attention to the children after class. Or she sets aside a time during the week to meet the children who have problems with academics or beyond academics. So the time engagement has become more meaningful. And I believe that all of this is possible only when the teacher is thinking mindfully. And for that, the teacher has to first take care of herself. Personal care. There is a lot of disturbance due to this, even in the families. We know that alcoholism has increased, domestic abuse has increased, even children may be going through that. But unless we do things to ourselves to keep ourselves in good health, in good shape, we are not going to affect the children as we should. So a few things that the teachers, to sum up, I would say that do what you feel like doing at that moment. Don't mix your work time with your personal time. Look out, enjoy nature, read, exercise, and let go. Don't keep hanging on to a grudge or a grievance, because that doesn't fetch anything. So to be a mindful teacher, you have to take mindful steps, and very simple steps that a teacher can take is something that works very well is the silence time, quiet time. Just take 5 minutes off from your schedule, sit down and keep your eyes open to think. Think about what is weighing you down. Think about how you can come out of the problem, and you get the answer immediately. Because there's no substitute for that. If you're smiling, even the most angry person in the room will think before he or she says something. So these are very simple techniques. Meditation, it works wonders. Now, meditation and mindfulness are very different things. Being mindful is being in the moment and doing something with complete awareness. And meditation is relaxing your body, relaxing your mind. It has a different effect. So if I have to be a teacher of the future, which I am already experiencing right now, I need to focus on myself first as a teacher. What makes me happy? What makes me complete? What gives me satisfaction? What energizes me? Is what the focus of the teacher should be, because this is what the teacher is going to take into the classroom. And if she's healthy, she's fine, she's fit, the students are going to be the same. So, I feel that to change is to transform and to find opportunity in every challenge. When you become comfortable with uncertainty, infinite possibilities open up in your life. So there is no need to look behind. We have to look forward. And Swami Vivekananda says that we want infinite energy, infinite zeal, infinite courage, and infinite patience. Then only will great things be achieved. So I think I salute all the teachers out there who've created this beautiful learning system, going out of their comfort zone. Please take care of yourself. That's the key to be a successful teacher. Thank you.
Awesome. Kalyani, thank you so much for your presentation. I think you've really honed in on such an important element of the educating of a child as part of a wider organism that is a school. In the media over here, there's a lot that is spoken of the well-being of the students, and a lot's been covered around being in lockdown, and we've touched on domestic violence a couple of times here, and we don't know what is going on behind closed doors, and now all of that has kind of been pressurized in this situation, with the external stresses having an impact on family time. Not a lot is being spoken about teachers' well-being. And I think a lot of the decisions that are being made are almost disregarding the importance of the educator leading by example and leading this healthy and mindful sort of approach. Have you found for yourself, beyond some of the techniques that you've shared, that there are some easy things that a teacher could do, let's say on a day-to-day basis, one thing that a teacher could do to improve their own well-being and their own, reprioritize that part before
Yes. See, we also had we have a celebration of the Teachers' Day in the month of September. So what we have realized that if you are not keeping yourself well, then you cannot keep your students happy. So as a treat, we have given them a 21-day workout session, which they can do at their own pace in their homes along with the family members. So that was a very small thing, but I felt that it is needed for the teacher to have a break, because they cannot go out now. They cannot, like I said, they're missing the staff room. Yeah. So how do they
socialize and
vent it out? How do they socialize? So you know what, when I say creativity, it comes in this manner also. So some of the teachers, they decided to work out at the same time using Zoom. So they could see each other and they could encourage each other.
Cool.
So that's how, you know, we are trying to take care of our well-being.
Amazing. Awesome. Kalyani, thank you very much. We are now going to move to Kerry. So if you would like to stop sharing, Kalyani, and
Yeah.
I will get Kerry's presentation up. Okie dokie. So Kerry, just as I say, just give me a nod when you want me to move forward.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Kerry Walsh. I'm a UK teacher here in Liverpool. Just a little bit about me. So basically, I have worked in education for over about 15 years. I've worked in a primary school, secondary. I've worked in a pupil referral unit. I've worked in an American juvenile detention centre, a medium secure prison, and finally a special educational needs setting. I originally trained as an art and design teacher. I have experience of being a head of department for several subjects. In my current job, I'm assistant head teacher at Clifford Holroyd SEN Specialist College. I'm responsible for the whole teaching and learning for all the school. In my school, it's an all boys setting. It's 11 to 16-year-olds. My boys all have educational healthcare plans and individual risk assessment documents. We offer an inclusive curriculum, and we have an on-site alternative educational provision, which is for those students who are on a vocational pathway. I'm conscious of time, so I shall be quick whilst I'm doing my presentation. So, academic connection, please, Tom.
Okay, so.
Thank you. And the next one.
And the next one.
Thank you. So the main focus that we thought that we needed to look at was working together to rebuild our school community. Back in March, a lot of my students were so upset. The change, the environment, the whole kind of you're not coming to school anymore. Some of them obviously have got autism. A change in pattern was horrendous for them. And parents at home, or whether it was a child in care or whatever setting they were living at, it was awful. So we found that we had to just start from afresh and make sure that we had to start getting food packs sent home, whether it was technology, whether it was having meetings just with parents to make them feel reassured. We had a lot of different caps on. I think I was about 7 different roles in one, from an online learning manager to a social worker, a counsellor, a bit of a police officer, you name it, that's what we had to do. So the key thing we wanted to support was learning across for pupils, teachers, and our parents. So we wanted to kind of cut down students being really nervous about being online for the first time. So what I did with my own staff was, for about a week, we all went online. It was a novelty on Microsoft Teams to be like, hi, this is all new. So we didn't know what we were going to do. So we spent a whole week trying to kind of get a plan of action. So we wanted our actual students to feel supported 100% whilst they were online. A lot of them and teachers got new skill sets and learning styles, and I trained some of our students to become mini teachers, helping them to produce lesson plans or holistic kind of mental health things. Next slide, please, Tom. Okay, so many of our students excelled in this role, and we called it flip learning to increase students. It kind of made sure that they were active and they could achieve the online actual work, and this increased confidence, leadership, being a team player, and just general skill sets. So subsequently, students developed employment skills without realising this. For example, one of my art classes, to be as a highlight, started to create an art lesson focusing in on computer gaming. So the students took on the role of like different leaders. So for instance, we had a lead designer, we've got building engineers, 3D model makers, we've got communication managers in there and publishing. All the students could make a connection with this new way of working academically was going to benefit them, and without realising, they were kind of up to scratch with a light bulb moment where they were connecting, do you know what, if I've got this educational experience, it's going to help me to reach a goal and a job. Teaching our students not to be fearful of technology has been a real challenge, not only for students, staff, parents, everyone across the board, which it seems to be quite similar for all our guest speakers. It's been really hard, but we're getting there at the moment, and it's really benefited the whole school workforce. And now we've got tech savvy students, teachers who are more confident online. Teaching has entered a new chapter. Education will never look the same from due to COVID. Our students now live in a new wave of education and an online employment opportunity. Therefore, as a school, we have created a timetable devoting 1 hour a week to careers. In this session, we wanted our students to explore these new jobs, because a lot of factory jobs, a lot of like hands-on things are starting to decrease. I know that a couple of guest speakers have mentioned that as well. But we wanted our students right from 11 to 16 to have the right toolkit to succeed in something that is a brand new career opportunity. So academically, as an SEN school, we have kind of seen a new breed of student who is a lot more academic and tech savvy to kind of like look at different jobs for in the future. Okay, next slide, please, Tom. Okay, globalization. So I kind of like stepped back and I had a little bit of time to think about what I could like share with you guys. From a personal level, we wanted our students and our staff to really understand that for the first time in education, we've all got the same common goal. We still want to educate our students no matter what. Working creatively was a real key for all our staff to try and share best practice, to know that they're not going to be the only ones trying to think outside the box to try and educate our students. Sharing with staff, even if it was something old-fashioned like making a pack of resources to be delivered. I'm so proud all of my staff on the first day of lockdown in our building came into the garden area. We all had all work packs out and we delivered a work pack to every single child across Liverpool City. So we gave them resources as in like pens, pencils, work packs for English, maths, science, art, you name it. And we went to the door and we had that face-to-face contact with a social distancing of 2 meters, by the way. So we had all our students engaged, and at that point, a lot of our students didn't have technology. A lot of our students are from deprived areas in Liverpool. They haven't even got food on the table of an evening, let alone a computer or a Wi-Fi connection. So at this point in March and April, it was imperative for us to give something and have that contact. Regular phone calls were going out daily. I was overseeing my staff as well, making them ring me to make sure that they were okay and their well-being and their family situation was okay. I wanted our staff to make sure that when they were speaking to their students or parents or whoever they were living with, that it's okay. We were all worried, we all had issues, and we don't know what the future holds for like our students of 2020. And I wanted everyone to understand what a lockdown looks like, whether that was nationally or locally, and to make sure that they weren't on their own. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So I wanted to teach our staff to become more interconnected with other people across the world and other businesses. And I wanted to open teachers' eyes to other teaching roles. So whether that was looking at someone in America or whether that was someone in China or whatever it was, just to see what their work-life balance is like during maybe like May, June and July of this year, just to make sure that they're kind of getting that perspective that they're not on their own. In September, we've only been back in school about 2 weeks. And I wanted to press the reboot button for our current teachers to have a different mindset for 2020. I wanted to reassure that we're all going to be still feeling anxiety and everything as the world's changing. And obviously since March, everything has changed, which our guest speakers have already mentioned. Communication has been a real key part of this. We wanted our staff to feel like really appreciated, that our staff wanted to know and really appreciated that they were updated on our government information, which has been a little bit up and down, which I know that Tom's mentioned. This has really helped our staff and parents by using Microsoft Teams in the first instance to communicate. Parents or carers have had the school at their fingertips for any information. We've been transparent. Because of our children, they have got so many different disorders. We wanted everyone to have all the information and we had nothing to hide. Because we did this, in effect, it helped our students to bridge the gap of lost communication and provided a sense of unity across the city. Next slide, please, Tom. Thank you. So for wellbeing, health and safety. So as a school, we're following local, national, international, like risk assessments. For instance, we have to wear masks, gloves, we've got visors. We're telling our children to make sure that they are keeping socially distanced. In my own art room at the moment, I have got 10 little desks. They are all marked out. I've got hazard tape all the way around, so they know that they're secure in their bubble. We have a bigger bubble as a year group, and then the overall bubble is the actual school. All our students are really, really trying to be socially distant. But as you can imagine, we've come back into school. We've got lots of people who haven't seen each other. They all want to try and like hug me or try and like high five me. So it's a lot of elbows. It's a lot of like air fives and stuff like this. And it's very difficult because some of our children are very, very tactile. The lack of like touch is really a problem for them. And especially with autism as well, some of our students are not coping well. So we have had behavioural issues and we have strategies in place for that. All of our staff have to wear full PPE. So we are not going into a close contact restraint without being fully protected. And our head teacher has really, really hit home about making sure that we are safe as well. So at the end of the day, every day, we have a debrief for our actual staff to just talk it through what's happened, any issues or anything. And I also invented a timeout card for some of our students to just have if they were feeling a little bit unsure. So I've really kind of been promoting it's okay not to be okay at this uncertain time in schools. I wanted our staff and our children to really take a minute, take on board, digest, and if they still felt unsure, they could have that time and space to like go outside, get some fresh air and come back. So working nationally and locally, I'm a co-leader for Schools and Education in Liverpool, in the Liverpool Cultural Educational Partnership, LSIP. I've worked with the Liverpool Tate Art Gallery over the summer to produce a mindful sketchbook work challenge for teachers. This piece of work was was put in place for teachers' well-being as a main focus. Each activity offered an outlet for teachers to express how they were feeling during lockdown, or even after going back maybe in June or July and having a little small cohort. I've also created a website link on LSIP called Culture Pool, and this is for teachers across the city, linking all hosts of different activities to re-energise their mindset and inspire them to create different lessons, workshops for our Scouts kids across the city. And finally, in school at Clifford Holroyd, we actually run something called Thrive. So Thrive is linked to mental health. It's a dynamic development trauma sensory approach, and it focuses on emotional and social needs of our students. Within my setting, a lot of our students have social and emotional needs, and it's a huge focus that our head teacher wants us to try to hit home to try and help. The Thrive lesson is a structured lesson for our students directly after lunch. All our staff are now delivered on it, can deliver the training on it, and it's now helping our students and our staff because they are allowed to use some of the techniques and strategies to maybe like feel calm or process an emotion. So an example of this would be to maybe listen to a certain piece of music, which I've just done with my class before coming on here, making a connection with that. Maybe that could be recorded in a sketch or a dance or a poem. So I've had them listening to Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars. Star Wars was going to be this big all singing, all dancing. So a lot of my students was like, it's boring, no connection. So the next one was the Avengers. So the Avengers theme tune, Marvel was all playing. Then I've got, I feel like Iron Man. I feel like I'm going to be Spider-Man. I feel happy. So we've got that connection, and I was able to kind of get their experience and their emotional like mindset of how the day is gone by recognizing within Marvel and Avengers that character that is they were associating themselves. So we had a couple of people who were being villains, we had a couple of people who were being heroes, hence our behavioural issue today. So that basically is a really good exercise as an example for Thrive. It's all online. If anyone wants, obviously, any information, I'm sure that Tom can direct you into my email or whatever, and I can give some more information. Next slide, please, Tom. Okay, hope. So during this dark and bleak time, both teachers and students need to turn negative feelings and positive ones. So at the moment, during art lessons, I've created this message in a bottle project. It's basically for students to draw into an empty bottle their worries or concerns, issues, anything that they were feeling during COVID time. Or in the sketch, they could write a message of hope or a drawing or an illustration to recognise something which another student from hopefully around the world could open up and use as inspiration during this like uncertain time. So I've had a mixed bag of drawings so far this week. A lot of children are really engaged in like drawing things that are related to COVID. I have had a lot of drawings of toilet rolls, bats, masks, and things that I was really surprised that they would be drawing. And then I've had a handful of children who have put a lot of information about how if something happened again, how they could help a fellow student, which is really, really inspiring. So finally, masks. Now my head teacher and myself are going round all masked, and all you can see obviously is your eyes. So it's to smile with your eyes and make sure that you are using expressions if possible, especially with autism. A lot of our students cannot read your face and read your emotions, so it's really imperative to try and like hit home with something that they can make a connection with. So I shall end on a Beatles quote. So, you may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Thank you.
Carrie, thank you so much. I love that quote, and it gives me goosebumps every time that I hear it. Again, thank you for sharing your experience. And I just want to give, again, a big thank you to all of our speakers for sharing their insights around the evolution of redefining the role of the teacher. We are in the final straight now of our virtual conference. And again, guys, this is the chance for you to write down some questions in the chat. We do have one question lined up for Catherine, and it is from Nerio. Excuse me if I've really butchered your name, I do apologize. But the question goes, what would be the effects on both teachers and students when they go back to face-to-face lessons? So after the COVID precautions have been dropped and we go back to a face-to-face environment, what do we think, Catherine, would be the impacts of teachers and students?
Okay, so in the Emirate of Dubai, we went back to face-to-face. Teachers started coming back to schools around mid-August. We opened back for face-to-face in September. And the overarching feeling or reports that I'm getting from teachers, I'm a practicing psychologist, so I get a lot of teachers come to me for kind of social emotional support. The overarching feeling is one of absolute shock and real dismay at how the whole educational landscape has changed. So we're educating similar to Europe we're calling them bubbles. So early years are all kind of encapsulated in little groups of 5 to 10. And in the senior from KS1 or elementary school upward, we have the students are on, I think, about 10 students per room. So everyone's separated out. We've got often big dividers in, and they're not allowed to use resources really. They have to have a little individual pack that they clean themselves, take with them. And everybody is saying that they do not feel like this is teaching. It's not teaching, it's not fun. Kids can't see you. We're being asked to teach phonics without removing our mask. So we have teachers really struggling. And I've had I've had about 7 friends, close friends, who have been close to self-harm or close to mental breakdown because they've been so disillusioned. So it's very difficult. And I think it will continue to be so until we really find a way of getting around the no resources. I think the resourcing is a huge concern, particularly for early years. They're not even allowed to use Play-Doh here. There's nothing. So you're trying to teach 3 and 4 year olds in pre-K or early years, EYFS, with just talking. And that's not fun. No.
Awesome. Thank you, Catherine. Again, guys, one thing that has come up time and time again is that, you know, you've all been put into an ever increasingly difficult position. And again, coming from somebody who isn't a frontline educator, it is inspiring to hear how you guys are taking on all of this additional stress and pressure and responsibility, actually, to go beyond your own safety nets and your, you know, on acceptable boundaries. Actually, you know, what's expected of you guys verges on unreasonable in a number of situations, and the fact that you take it on rather without questions, probably not the best way to explain it, but you take it on without rebuttal. And it's both inspiring and reassuring to know that the people who care the most are actually on the front lines. So I would love to end this virtual conference with a big thank you to you all. I hope everybody survives September and we all come out of it without too much liver damage. And again, please, if there are any questions, please put them into the Facebook group. I'll be inviting the speakers to pick them up and to answer them there. Keep an eye open for these pearls of wisdoms. We'll be putting them into the group shortly. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next conference. So, thank you all. Enjoy your mornings, afternoons, or evenings, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.